Hello, and thank you for joining me and my friend Susan Heaton Wright, who is a speaking and impact mentor. First things first, I've got to explain, I'm not in my usual office. This is the back of my kitchen. Susan has a fan gently humming in the background because in the UK we're topping 30 degrees again today, and it's definitely too hot to work, but we'd arranged this interview and we're going to get it done. And yeah, we're in like desperate measures, emergency measures to try and keep our temperature down. So apologies that it's not my usual pretty pom-pom garland background, but it's going to have to do for today. So I will let Susan introduce herself in a minute. I just want to say this interview came about it was really fun. I sent out a blog post via email talking about why people find writing so much harder than speaking. And Susan got in touch with me to say, actually, lots of people find speaking much harder than writing. And I know that's true because I'm one of them. I actually find writing so much easier than speaking. So this is kind of like Susan's right of reply. And I'm going to pick up some great tips on how I can get more confident with, I'm not sure I'll go as far as public speaking, but at least speaking on camera or speaking on video when I know people are watching me. So if you could give us a proper introduction, Susan, she'll do a much better job than I did.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me to come on. My name is Susan Heaton Wright, and I work with people to become the best versions of themselves when they're speaking and are in real life situations such as meetings or something like this, where we are actually speaking to each other and communicating rather than the written word.
So naturally, I'm really nervous for this interview and tripping over my words more than I would do normally.
Actually, I noticed your voice went really high when you introduced yourself.
It's the tension in the throat. I can feel it going.
You don't need to be like that. You've got fantastic things to say to other people.
Thank you.
Just in the written word when you're speaking as well. Remember that.
It's so I do a lot of work on myself where I go like, oh, where did that belief come from, or why do I think that? And I have quite a strong Essex accent, but also my parents are from Wanstead and Enfield, so they have their own kind of sound. And I was sent to a girls' grammar school, so I had like how I would speak at school because that was how it was permitted, and then how I would speak at home. And so it's taken me as an adult a really long time to kind of bring the two together and be one person that everyone can understand. Yeah, but just be myself, not have like the two different voices that are acceptable depending on the audience.
Well, can I sort of butt in? Yeah. I was brought up in Birmingham. My parents aren't from Birmingham, and in order to survive in a Birmingham school, you know, it was a grammar school, then I went to a private school, I had to put on a Brummie accent.
Oh wow, so you had to make, so instead of toning down
I can speak with a Brummie accent like this.
You could get yourself a job on the Peaky Blinders like that.
Yeah, most of them can't do a Brummie accent.
Oh, that's really interesting. So I'm not the only one that has their own made-up voice for public.
Absolutely. You know, I think that particularly in Britain, we all tune in to how we speak the accent and things like that. And whilst ever since I was a child, things have changed, that you should only have an RP accent, otherwise you were considered perhaps slightly under the salt or not very intelligent, with all things that are limiting beliefs by those people saying it. I believe that that's what adds variety. If we're all speaking with slightly different accents, it just adds to the spice of life. But I think that we have to be aware that we need other people to understand what we're saying. So if we've got a really strong accent, it might be difficult for them to tune into you, and they will tune out.
Mm-hmm. If you're having to concentrate too hard to understand what someone's saying.
Yes.
Okay. So for today, thankfully, you're not going to teach me how to stand up on stage and do public speaking because I'm not quite ready for that.
I would jump in on that. Look, honestly, we're public speaking.
Okay.
Change your limiting beliefs, say we're public speaking.
So then I've got lots of experience public speaking because I've done plenty of Facebook Lives and videos.
Absolutely. So if you change your mind about that, you're already doing it. So, you know, hey.
I like that. So for people who are just getting started out speaking more confidently in public,
Yes.
I thought Facebook Live was probably like the best way, if we like imagine ourselves as that's the beginner step.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be if you could give us some tips on how we could prepare, because I guess it's not just what you do once you're on the camera, it's what you do to prepare first. If we talk about that, because I know I'm totally guilty of it. Don't even make sure I've got a drink. I haven't got a drink handy, and then like rushing around, jumped on, turn the camera on, and then like you say, your throat is like really tight, and the voice goes high, and the heart's racing, and it's the worst combination to get started to, like say, speak publicly. So, what would you suggest we do to help prepare ourselves before we even turn the camera on?
Okay, so the first thing to do is to think about what you're going to say. I know it might sound,
good idea.
Yeah. What you're going to say, what the purpose is of your Facebook Live. If it's, you know, just to have a little chat, then absolutely fine. But we obviously want people to engage with it and possibly a call to action. So think about what you're going to say, what the topic is. It might be that you've just got one thing that you want to say, or 3 points, for example. Write them down, 2 little bullet points. Then think about your great introduction, what to hook them in. So it might be, hi everybody, I want to talk about my Facebook Live experience, for example. Okay. Then at the end, think about a call to action. Now it might be, go on, have a go, or join Laura's Facebook group because she talks about this sometimes, and then practice it.
Oh, so you think it's a good idea to, because I always imagine Facebook Lives as being something that's really, I think we're encouraged to do it kind of spontaneously and without much forethought. But I found that for myself, I started with recording videos because I needed to record them for my training courses. Yes. And I would record it about 4 times and then like record it and then watch it back, record it. And then I did get better. I found that process really helped me to make a better recording. But yes, even before you do a Facebook Live, you should practice it out loud as if the camera's running before you hit live.
Absolutely. You could practice it in the front of the mirror. You could practice it by doing a video, but it just gets you.
Sorry, you can set it so that you just see yourself, I think, on Facebook Live. So maybe you could actually just do it and then watch it back.
Absolutely. Just do it a few times so you get used to it.
Okay.
And you might be aware that you're speaking too fast or that there's something going on in the background that you might not want to include in the Facebook Live.
It's a funny story about that because I recorded a video for my training course. I recorded it here. It was before I had my office ready. And it was when I was just starting out on video. So I was so nervous and it took me so many attempts to get this video down. And then I got it done and then I watched it back and my cat was sat right there where the cushions are and she was licking herself the whole way through. It wasn't even nice, cute grooming. It was, it was not good to have on camera. And I had to do the whole thing again because of that cat. So yeah, normally I try and be a bit more aware of what's going on in the background. She taught me a valuable lesson that day. Have a quick scan around and see what's there first.
Excellent.
So is that our prep before we go live?
Yes, I mean, you talked about your mouth becoming dry and things like that. Yeah, having some water and having a good slurp of water. But actually what happens is that it can be because you're a little bit dehydrated as well as nervous. So having a drink well beforehand, because it takes up to 2 hours to absorb fluids.
Okay.
So if you're hydrated well beforehand, that will be good.
That's a good idea. So that's why you get dry mouth. It's not necessarily you don't need the drink there and then. You should have had it a couple of hours beforehand.
Way before, yes. So it's sort of preparation way in advance, but it's something good to be aware of.
Right. Okay.
So so that's preparation. You know, really knowing what you're going to do, because it's really easy. We've all done it. I've done it. I don't know about you, but certainly I've done it. I've started talking and then I think, oh, actually, what was I going to say?
Oh, lost the plot part way through that.
Yeah.
I'm getting much better at it. So I have like a sheet. So for this, I've got a sheet of notes that I did yesterday.
Yes.
For the lives that I do now, The planned ones, I try and plan my like prompt sheet at least a day or so beforehand, so I've got time to think it through and see if I want to add anything in. But the spontaneous ones, I did one the other day where I couldn't even do it in the house. The house was so noisy. I was like, okay, I'm just going to take my phone and do it outside really quickly, because I had something I wanted to say that was an answer to a question. And I didn't have any paper to hand or anything, so just grabbed this biro. And so in the live, you can see when I move my hand around, this like, it looks like I've got a very intricate tattoo all over the back of my hand, but it's just my notes to myself to keep me on track.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It worked.
Yeah, absolutely. It did the plan.
So once we've done our prep and we've hit the button and we're ready to start talking, are there any tips or things that we should remember during the broadcast?
Well, first of all, really have a good opening. Make sure that it's really clear what you're going to talk about. Even if it's something spontaneous, you want people to know straight away what it is that you're talking about, so that they will stay on. And make sure that you are slowing down what you say, because it can be very easy when you go live that the heartbeat goes, and then you start breathing more shallowly and everything gets faster.
Mm-hmm.
And it is more difficult for people to engage and hear what you're saying, particularly if there are other distractions such as noise in the background. So I always say, make it as easy as possible for people to listen and understand you.
Yes, and with face, especially when you do spontaneous ones, if you're holding the camera, that's kind of like moving around as well. Yes. So it definitely pays to spend a little bit of time like getting to this physical space where you're going to be doing it, and then just sit there for maybe a minute just to calm back down and make sure that, like I said, the background and everything is ready, and calm my breathing down. I definitely made those mistakes the first few times. Get so overexcited and then start talking.
Absolutely, yes, and we've all done it. And you learn from these things. And you know what? No one died.
No, it was okay, and people still come back and watch me some more. So it couldn't have been that terrible.
Absolutely. And you know, we're all on a journey, aren't we?
So if you find yourself like I know I do it, I'm talking and I think in my head like, this is too fast, you need to slow it down. But then I become really self-conscious that I'm going to sound like I'm in slow motion, you know, like I've gone, blah, 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 and then I'm going to talk really slowly. So how can you do that? How do you make that transition as soon as you become aware that you're speaking too fast?
Do you know, one thing that I say to my clients is, and you will know this as a writer, you use punctuation as a way of breaking up what you're writing, aren't you? And it gives the reader the opportunity to take in what you've said because of a full stop or the start of a new paragraph, and they understand the structure that you are moving from one clause, one thought to another. And in the same way, we can use the idea of punctuation in the form of a breath or a pause, because you're going into what could be another paragraph of what you're saying. Does that make sense? Or am I talking absolute baloney?
No, so as you're like shifting from one concept to another, imagining the time, like, so the time for that is enough for them to absorb what's just been said.
Absolutely.
And then kind of make a little space so the next idea doesn't just run straight into the last one.
Absolutely. So taking a breath, not only does it slow you down, but it gives an opportunity for the people listening and watching your Facebook Live to take in what you've said. It's
interesting that you talked about it in terms of writing and punctuation, because that makes it much easier for me to almost see it in my head. Because when I'm working with my VIPs and they send me something they've written and they want me to copy edit it, when I read it and there's hardly any punctuation and it's like, ugh, I feel like it's assaulting the reader with this like just barrage of text, and it doesn't take much effort to just break it up into much smaller sentences, and it feels like it's calmed down and slowed down when I do that. And then I do that so that they can take it in as they're reading it and give them a fighting chance of making it to the bottom of the page. So as soon as you said, so imagine it like it's punctuation, can almost see it in my head that when I'm talking fast, it's like that text is concertinaed up. It's really tiny and it's scrunched all together, and there's no breaks in the text. And I stretch it out and then make those big chunks of white space that I like to see on a web page. So I need to hold a visual image of what I'm saying in my head, I think.
I think that would help. And it does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's
particularly with Facebook Live, when it can be, you know, as you say, an assault.
Yeah.
Verbal assault.
And if you think about the nature of, so if it's a planned Facebook Live, that's different because I've had time to think about it. If it's a spontaneous Facebook Live, I've just thought, I've had this great idea, or there's something that I want to communicate. I come from this space of thinking, I've got something that I need to get at, like I want to communicate this, I've had an idea and I need to share it, or I've got a piece of feedback, I need to share it. And then it can just come out like this kind of avalanche of information, or very little control, and it's quite quick. So but it's interesting thinking about that the prep beforehand, where I sit and pause and plan it out, and then check the background and calm my heart rate down and have my drink and do all of that stuff beforehand, should actually make it easier to slow right down in the delivery, because it's almost been like a break in the momentum from thinking I've had this idea and I want to communicate on Facebook Live to pressing the live button. If we put a few more stages between, like the moment that it comes into my head and the moment I want it to come out of my mouth, then it should slow things down a bit.
Absolutely. And I know before this this video, we did talk about the difference in the process between speaking and writing. And you do free flow writing first, then, don't you? And you edit it.
Yeah, that was really interesting. So we had a quick chat yesterday on the phone before this interview. And your theory of why I find writing so much easier than speaking, I was like, yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I wish in my, in real life, I could roll back and edit it 4 times over before anybody else could hear it. But that would make real life very slow. So it's not going to happen.
So it's almost the opposite of what you feel you need to do. And I'm sure you've been in meetings when there's been somebody that's come up with a brilliant idea, but it's sort of it's sort of all thrown out. So in fact, people get lost in the enthusiasm and everything coming out, because which is brilliant, and there's a time and place for it.
It's really interesting that you say that. So before I was self-employed, I had a corporate career. I worked for an insurance company. And I would say that I was that person that would have, I would see, like they would bring me into meetings and I'd listen to everyone talking about, I would see the problem and see how it all connected together, but it would want to come out of my mouth at 100 miles an hour. And then, but luckily my managers, the people that worked with me, knew me really well. So they would just hand me a dry white marker.
Yeah.
And send me to the board and go, just put it on there and then talk us through it, so that they stood a fair chance of understanding what was coming out of my mouth. I could sketch it out on a big whiteboard first. So this is not new to me, that my communication style is definitely better in writing and needs to slow down and a bit more structure verbally, because as you were saying that, it reminded me, I thought, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was like in meetings.
Oh, and it's not a criticism, it's just knowing what's going to work with your audience.
Yeah, and once we knew that's not, it wasn't something they were going to be able to change in me overnight, but they still wanted to hear what I had to say.
Yeah.
There's your whiteboard, off you go. They'd carry on chatting amongst themselves while I was sketching all this stuff out, and then that way of communicating worked. So like you said, just having that self-awareness of, this is something that I do. Or for me, it wasn't I'm not going to kid you. At 23, I wasn't that self-aware. My manager was aware that was my problem, and he knew how to remedy it for me. So is that everything that we need to do during the live call? We've talked about taking a pause. We did a lot about prep. My mind is still in prep, and it seems like that's because talking about it, I'm like, that's definitely where I fall down. So I've not done enough prep, and then it all runs away from there. But we've talked about how we can slow it down during the presentation. What about I become like that? So I get really self-aware that once I've pulled my hair away from my face, I think, like, don't do that anymore. become, what happens if you get really self-conscious about how you're appearing to other people? Is there...
Yeah, you know, that I think that that's something that a lot of people get worried about with Facebook Live, in particular, because videos that take place in a studio can make you look absolutely fantastic, quite rightly, if you're paying the money, you know, go with it.
I would like my own studio, that'd be nice.
Yeah, it would. But obviously Facebook Live, you don't have the angles or the lighting or all of those things. But that's what it is. It is almost like in real life rather than something virtual or something that's sort of semi-real.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you get over the fact that that's you, and provided you're not, you know, doing all, well, I do that, but that there aren't too many distractions. This is real life. This is you. It's called Facebook Live for a reason.
So it's not too distracting for other people.
No.
I think there's a chance probably I notice it more than other people do, because like looking at your own face on the screen is very disconcerting.
And it's interesting because so often I work with people and they say that they've done work before and they've been shown videos and it really freaks them out sometimes. And that's one of the reasons why I like to work with mirrors, because you can correct yourself straight away. So if you are doing a Facebook Live and you practice in front of the mirror, you can really look at what you're doing, what you're doing that might distract your audience.
So that, oh, sorry. That's what you have to do, interrupt.
And you come to terms with, you know, how you look.
That sort of brings us around to when I was going to talk about what do we do after the event.
Yeah.
So after we've gone live and recorded our video, something that I've really got into the habit of doing, even though it, you know, I don't enjoy it, don't get me wrong, I don't spend Saturday night thinking, I'm going to get a glass of wine and watch all the Facebook Lives I've done in the last week, because I just love myself so much. I just make myself sit and watch it. I couldn't, to start off with. I think if I'd watched them back in the early days, I probably never would have done another one again. But once I built up the confidence a bit more, I find it really helpful to watch the videos back. And you know, I don't take notes on what I've done wrong, but I just think I noticed that you know, that I speak too fast, or I might just pick out one thing and then keep it in mind for, okay, next time I'm just going to try and remember, but I try and focus on one thing at a time, because otherwise it would become like this self-destructive process where I list all the things that I do wrong. So is that something that you think is a good idea? Yeah,
I think it's a really good idea to do that, but not straight away afterwards. Okay. And I'll tell you a story from when I was a singer, that it was quite normal when you're at music college, you do a recital, you'd literally come off stage and your singing teacher would be there with a list of 20 things you'd done wrong, like you breathed in this place incorrectly, rather than, well done, you've done that, great, tomorrow we'll have a chat in our lesson. So, you know, just take a little bit of time afterwards, because your adrenaline will have raised and, you know, your heartbeat will be going, and there'll suddenly be a drop. And that's the worst time to review what you've done, because you know, you're going to beat yourself up mentally and be very critical.
I'm imagining that would have set up, so in your example, that must set up a really negative feedback loop in your brain of when I perform, absolutely, I'm then going to get this kick in when I get off stage. So if we do it to ourselves, so then the opposite of that surely is, if I do a Facebook Live, then I shall reward myself with something lovely immediately afterwards to set up a positive feedback loop of doing this nice thing and then come back around to it just later in the day.
Yeah, and what I always do now is to think of 3 great things that I've achieved through doing that, and then one thing that perhaps I could think about working on for next time. So perhaps it could be that I spoke too fast, or I was messing around with my hair a little bit much, just to be aware of, but very much focused on the positive and building from the positive.
That's great. I don't do that, so I need to do that. I pick one thing that I don't like about it and focus on that, but I don't ever pay attention to what I've done well. I suppose except that I still go, oh, you did it. Because I'm still in that phase. I was like, congratulations, you didn't just stay in bed today. You actually did it. But that's really interesting that I've like naturally honed in on that. I should only have one thing to focus on at a time. And that's also come from, you know, I give people feedback all the time on websites and things that they've written, and I give them feedback on more than one thing. But I am aware that if you have too much and you just flood someone with this could be better and this could be better, and also if it's a mixture of, you know, big things and small things, then the volume of the small changes completely overwhelms them, and then the big stuff's not going to happen because they're just like, well, you know, well, it's all just terrible, so why should I bother? So that it's the same kind of, just focus on one important change or one important thing you want to do differently, and just let the rest slide until next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are small videos, aren't they? And if you're doing them regularly, if you've got a whole list of things that you need to work on to get better, then that's going to be overwhelming. But focusing on one little thing at a time to build up your confidence and skill level, then you will grow.
So I guess you could write at the top of the prompt, you know, do a prompt sheet of these are the points I want to cover, and then maybe one note to self across the top that says, you know, remember to add full stops. That would be my one.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll all have different ones.
Oh, great. I feel this has been really useful to me. So hopefully everybody watching is going to find it useful too. So I've probably been doing Facebook Live for about 6 months, and I still feel really new to it, and really eager to learn as much as possible, because it's like, I don't know, it's almost like being a child with a toy when they went, here you go, you can just broadcast to whoever you want and just press live and off you go. And initially it's like, yeah, this is brilliant. And then the weight of responsibility, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't just go crazy with that. So I'm ready to use it in a slightly more grown up way. And definitely the prep is the thing that I know for me, that's where I fall down. I'm in too much of a rush to get started. So that will make a big difference. I wanted to just switch the conversation a bit, because in our telephone call yesterday you mentioned that you've been away doing some really interesting volunteer work, and I felt a bit guilty about complaining how hot it is here where you've been, and I think that would be really interesting for people to hear a bit more about that. So if you'd like to share with us, that would be great.
Oh yes, for a week I went with my husband and son. My son's just about to go to university to read music, and we worked with local musicians who volunteer in Greece and refugees to build up a collaboration, to build up sort of music workshops. And because there are a lot of refugees, it's a real problem in Athens. There are a lot of people that are sleeping rough because the camps are full, and there are literally thousands of people that are escaping from Afghanistan still and Syria coming to Greece, and we wanted to start creating something that would bring joy, fun, and for these people to connect. So on Monday, and I was saying that it was 41 degrees.
Wow.
In Athens, we did a one-day workshop. I was exhausted by the end of it, I have to say. And there were refugees there, some of whom had only just come over to Athens and were still very traumatized by the going in these boats. But by the end of the day, everyone was smiling, everyone was hot, everyone was energized. And you know, there were a few people that had been crying at the beginning of the day, parents who looked haunted. They'd got that haunted face. It was heartbreaking. These are human beings, and by the end of the day they were engaged. And the next thing that we are going to be doing, obviously because of the fires that have taken place and the terrible tragedy that happened on Monday night in about 20 miles from where we were, everything's on hold for a bit. But what we're going to do is to see if there can be a weekly drop-in session, initially maybe for you know, children that are preschool, rather like those baby music things. You remember that we all did with our kids. And it would mean that families would be coming together on a regular basis, and it would be a way that they could connect and create a community, but also that they could be checking on whether they're okay, if there are any resources they need, and to grow. So that's the next thing that we'll be doing, be involved in.
How did you get involved in that?
Well, I don't know if you know a wonderful lady called Gosha Gorner, who is a life coach, a real visionary. We went to her Build a Great Year day in January, and there was a lady there who was selling artwork, because another project that this particular charity do, or the only one that they did, was art-based therapy. So they would provide art materials for these kids who would paint, and obviously it was a catharsis for their trauma. And they, for artists who are older, who are adults, they actually get the artists to paint. They provide the art materials, they paint, and the ones that are, you know, appropriate, they will actually buy the artwork from the artists, and that will pay for their food. And then there are exhibitions all over the world where people can buy the artwork, and all of the money goes directly to the refugees.
Wow, that's an amazing, I love that model of, there's so many layers of help within it.
Yes.
But it's almost, I mean, it's almost self-sustaining financially as well.
Absolutely. And the person that we met introduced us to Kyra Martinez, who is actually an air hostess. So she does that a couple of weeks, and then when she's off, she's in Athens, and every day she's giving food and clothing and blankets and things like that to the homeless people, refugees. But she's built this whole art thing, and now we're tapping on a music thing, so it can either work together or as another arm of the charity.
And if people wanted to find out a bit more about the work that you're doing and the charity you're working with, where should they go?
Okay, so the charity has got a website called Love Without Borders, Life for Refugees. I'll write it down and send it to you.
Okay, and I'll make sure that's in the description of this video.
And also there's somewhere where you can actually donate, a PayPal thing, and all of them at the moment, what they're doing is buying essential resources for all of those homeless people after the fire. And there are some refugees that have donated artwork of their own to pay for this, which I think is astonishing.
That's lovely.
You know, given their situation. And we've been writing a blog called Music Without Borders 2018.blogspot.com.
Okay, and I'll put a link.
Writing about it and encouraging people. And we'll be going back, and we're going to see, because other people have been asking, you know, we'd love to be involved, have a volunteer holiday. And you know, almost sounds patronizing. It's not meant to be like that, but they want to help in some way. And we're going to see if there's a way that other people could get involved.
Wow, that's a very impressive way to be spending your spare time. And it's only fair we give people information on how to find more about you, because you've given us some great tips, and I'm sure you've got plenty more to offer. So where should they go to find out a bit more about what you do?
Yes, my website is executivevoice.co.uk, and like everybody else, I've got a newsletter, so would be absolutely delighted if you wanted to get more tips and be connected.
Sounds like a great way to have like a regular reminder in your inbox of, you know, to be more mindful of how we're speaking and presenting ourselves.
Because everybody's capable of doing public speaking, just like we are now.
Okay, I'm going to take away that message and what you said before about I've got to change my own story about how I don't speak publicly and I'm not very good at it. And okay, I'm going to I need to rewrite the script that's in my head about that one.
Yeah, because we've all got these scripts, haven't we?
Yeah, they're very annoying.
They are
I
very...
really realise that I've been running my whole life on that one. I'm not really sure I'm ready to take it away now. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this interview. It's been absolutely packed with useful tips. I'm going to have them, the tips made up into some kind of printable poster, just because it will be helpful to me. But obviously that will be available to download for people that have watched the video or read the blog post as well. So I can have something up on my wall that tells me, remember to do these things. And then maybe a space at the top that says like my own personal current feedback point that I'm working on. And I can then tape that to the side of the wall and keep an eye on it before I press that live button. So also go.
I've just got one thought. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, go for it.
If you've got that feedback thing, remember you're a work in progress, and there are people that are absolutely amazing that are still working on themselves. So don't give this a moment to beat yourself up.
Thank you. That's a good point worth remembering, I think. I have those moments. I don't know if everybody else gets it, where I remember I'm a work in progress, and I've still, that's okay. So sometimes it can be quite like soft, positive, soothing talk about I'm a work in progress, and it's okay that didn't work out. And then maybe every now and then I just want to throw my toys out the pram and say, but when will I be perfect? This is so unfair. How have I still got stuff to work on after all this time? And then I have a little moan for about an hour, and then remember I'm a work in progress, and I'm always going to be a work in progress, and that's okay. So perfect public speaking is not the destination. It's just gradual improvements all the time.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, that's a great one for me to take away. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for joining me, Susan. And there will be the printable link to the printable will be somewhere. So if you're watching this on Facebook, it will be in the description for the video. If you're watching on the blog, it will be in the blog post somewhere, and all the links back to Susan's different sites, so you can find out more about her. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back again with another video soon.